Welcome to our fourth lecture in which we're going to discuss the letter. We just have a few cleanup points to cover and then we're going to dive into actually creating a letter together. Now this is a way so that you can see how all the various parts fit together. If they seemed a little bit disjoint, we're going to go ahead and uh, construct one. So if there was some point of ambiguity that I didn't make clear, I apologize, and we'll hopefully resolve all those points of confusion as we actually put a letter together. If you have some question though that I am not smart enough to answer in this presentation, feel free to stop by my office hours or send me an email and we can talk through the issue. So let's get started on some of the points that I maybe didn't fully cover. One is that when you are sending a letter to a client, potentially that is an attorney-client communication or more likely an attorney-work product communication. Whichever one it is, you want to be sure that you're not sending it to anyone other than the client and possibly people within the law firm. So don't send it to opposing counsel or something like that. Law firms have different policies about whether you can CC a client on a letter that is sent to somebody who isn't within the law firm. Follow your law firm's practices in that area. Another thing to flag is that when you are communicating with the court or with opposing counsel, usually you're going to want to copy all other parties of record. Now that's not always true. But before you don't contact the other parties of record, you'd want to talk to the attorney to say, is this really what we want to do? There are times where it is appropriate not to, but generally speaking, most of the time you're going to want to copy everyone if you are sending it to one person. I initially wasn't going to talk about BCCs, but I see that I have it on the PowerPoint, so I've decided to go ahead and talk about that. So we talked about CCs. CC is actually an old-fashioned expression relating to carbon paper. It used to be that before we had printers, what people would do, what secretaries would do, would be if they wanted two copies of a letter, they would have one copy of the letter, the one on letterhead, they would put that into the typewriter, and then between that page and the next page, they would put a piece of carbon paper. And so whenever the uh, 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 typewriter letter hits the paper, then that would cause an impression to go through the carbon paper and onto the next page. Well, that page underneath, and you could actually have this for 5 or 10 pages, but as you go gradually farther down the stack, they become less precise in terms of their appearance. They become a little bit more muddy, and so they're less attractive. Anyway, that's when we talk about carbon copy, we're talking about getting those copies that have been imprinted through the carbon paper. Obviously, nobody uses carbon paper anymore. We're going to actually make Xerox copies or whatever copy machine you happen to use. So the copied versions are going to look essentially identical to the one that is actually sent to the person who the letter is addressed to. The areas that you might find some differences is that usually the carbon copy copies are not going to be in color. And so if your letterhead is in color, then that won't be in color. And then of course you're not going to have a wet signature. You'll have a photocopy of the signature. Since most attorneys are going to sign letters in blue ink, it's pretty clear that this is actually a copy. That's one of the reasons actually why attorneys typically do sign things in blue ink, so that it's a professional color, but it's obviously, you can distinguish the original from the one that is photocopied. So that's how CCs work in a little bit more detail. So what is a BCC? A BCC, in the version that we're going to use in this class, insofar as we use one, which we probably won't, it will be a lowercase b, a C, and a C, and then again we'll use the colon, and we'll tab, and then we'll list the names just like we did with the CC. So no variation from that. So what is a BCC? Well, it stands for blind carbon copy, and it's actually referring not to the person who's getting the BCC, but is referring to everybody else. So let's say I'm writing a letter to John Smith. I'm also CCing Mary Green, and I want to BCC Harold Brown. Well, Harold Brown will see that Mary and John got the letter, that it was addressed to John and that Mary got a CC. Mary will see that John was the original recipient of the letter, and obviously she'll know she got the letter, but she won't know anything about Harold. John, the recipient of the letter, will know that he got a copy of it, and he'll know that Mary got a CC of it, but he won't have any idea about Harold. So in other words, Mary and John are blind to the fact that Harold got a copy. Harold is the BCC, but the blindness is the other people's problems. So you might think, well, why would I want to do that? Well, many times law firms will BCC the client because after all, nobody other than the client and the attorney should know about communications between the client and the attorney. Well, a CC, or for that matter, a BCC, is a communication between the attorney and the client if the attorney is preparing the letter, and it's attorney work product if the attorney directed that the letter be prepared. So by sharing with people outside the law firm that the client is getting a copy of the letter, in some sense, the world is hearing about an attorney-client communication. But it could be other people. For example, the law firm might be looking into hiring some expert witnesses, but they haven't finalized it, or perhaps it's before the discovery requirements have kicked in, and so there's no need to disclose who the expert witnesses would be. Well, under those circumstances, you might choose to BCC that expert witness so that you're not, showing your cards, your strategical cards at this point in the undertaking. And there can be lots of other reasons why you only want certain people to know about a recipient of the letter. So that is kind of the logic behind it. How do you format it? Well, again, we're not going to do that in this class, but the methodology, there kind of are two methods. One is to put the BCC on the same page as the CC. So let's say it's a one-page letter, you'd put it on that one page. The problem with that is that it's difficult to manage. You have to run that first page through the printer twice, once with the BCC, once without. And then you have to be careful that you have the person who's signing the letter to sign the version without the BCC. And then you have to make sure that as you're distributing the CCs and the BCC copies, that you only give the BCCs the copy with the BCC on it. As you can see, it's fraught with possible errors. Lots of different things can go awry. And so an approach to resolve that is to put all the BCCs on a second page. And this second page is only seeable by the BCC. So in my example, John and Mary, let's say it's a one-page letter. John and Mary get the one page. They think that's all there is. Harold gets the one page that John and Mary get, but he also gets his BCC page. It's a little bit easier to track, and there's just one version of the first page. But again, some law firms will apply one approach, some law firms will apply the other approach. I happen to prefer, not surprisingly, the easy approach, which is to use a second page. So that's the information about BCCs. Again, we're not going to be doing one in this course, so nothing too much to worry about here. Now we're going to flip to the example that we're going to create. So I'm going to start with looking at our list of things that we're supposed to do. And the first thing that we're supposed to do is check our formatting. So I'm going to go and check my formatting. I'm going to look at my margins, and I see that I have normal 1111. Looks good. I'm going to see about Times New Roman 12 point, and I'm going to make sure I turn off the spacing before and after, and I'm going to select 1.15. So I have Times New Roman 12 point. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to 1.15. We have add and add. That's what I want. So it looks like I'm good with the formatting. I'm going to go ahead and name my document right now. We don't cover naming conventions here, but I'm just going to call this example of letter. And I'm just going to include this. Okay. Well, let's call it example of letter for letter lecture 4. Okay, So we've named it, we have set up our formatting, so we're good to go at first. Now we're going to put the letterhead. Now, a lot of people save the letterhead for the last thing that we do, but I'm just going to go from top to bottom in the order that we ordinarily have. So here we are on our class website, and I'm going to go in and find my sample documents module because I want to use the Canon. Here we go, sample documents. I'm going to use the Canon letterhead. So I'm going to pick this first one, Miller, Canon, and Mourinho. I could use the other one, but the instructions on my assignment said to use this one, so that's the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to take that right here. I could just continue printing on this document if I wanted to. Let's just do that because it's probably a little bit easier. So I'm going to have to go back and make sure I have my formatting things right. Margins, yep, that's good. Times New Roman 12 looks good. Gonna change this. I've got add and add, so everything looks good. I'm going to save as. Here we go. A lot of people forget to change this name, but we have a letter example for letter lecture 4, and this time I'm going to okay, so we're good to go here. I'm not going to make any changes. I might look at it and go, why is there this long space? It would look better without. But again, I don't get a vote in this. Somebody has already made the decision about how to present this. And so I'm not going to make any changes. Looks like we're good to go. And now we're ready for our date. So we're going to format the date, then we're going to tab it over. So let's do it. So I'm going to start right here. You can see I have a blank line here. The instructions say 1 or 2 lines below. I'm going to go with 1. Again, this is something I can adjust over time. We'll say the date is October 4, 2020. Now, one thing I immediately notice is that because this is my letterhead, everything's in bold, but I don't want the letter to be in bold, so I'm going to undo that really quick. You can see I'm on the left margin. You can see I've selected left justification up here, or actually it's kind of the default setting. So I'm going to tab over. 1, let me turn this on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go with 6. 5 would also be fine. Don't worry about it being exactly centered. It's fine the way that it is. So I've been successful with that, and I'm going to go to mode of delivery. I'm going to, here we go. I'm going to go with UPS overnight. We still have it on bold. I'm going to get rid of that. That's going to be annoying. And I'm going to say I have a tracking number. Tracking number 987654321. Okay, so I'm going to tab these over. Actually, I'm not going to tab them over. Excuse me. I'm going to switch it to right justification. I'm going to put this in italics. And now I'm going to save. And I'm going to go to my next item. We're ready for inside address. We can go 1 or 2 lines below mode of delivery. Okay. So I'm going to go 1 line, and I'm going to say our recipient is Mr. Robert Davis, and his title is Chief Executive Officer. Actually, let's make it Director of Research. So you can see my 2 major words, director and research, are going to be caps. They're also going to be caps because they're the first words, but my little word of is not capitalized. This is optional. I don't have to include this, and obviously if I'm sending Robert this letter because he needs help with his will, I wouldn't list this. His employer is ABC Corporation. All of that gets capitalized, and now I'm going to use the street address 54300. We'll say Main Street. I'm going to choose to spell it out. It's really whatever I want, and I'm going to call it Suite 200. And I'm going to put, we'll say this is in Plano, Texas, 75024. So I could have abbreviated street. I could have put Suite 200 on another line. If I had done that, I'd get rid of that comma. I could have used an abbreviation for Texas. All of that's good. But let's say somebody gave me this as the zip code. Well, I can look at it and see it's wrong. I know there's got to be at least 5 digits or 9 digits. So I'm going to look it up to see what is the correct zip code if I don't get all the digits. So it looks like we're good to go with that. Now I'm going to tab. Well, let me go back to my list and see. Again, you're going to kind of go through these in more detail. So we're looking for 2 or 3 lines below. So I'm on my second line. I'm going to just stay with that. I'm going to indent once, do Ray, and then the colon. Let me make this a little bit bigger so it's a little easier for everyone to see. And now I'm going to say your deposition June, actually since it's October, we'll say it's November 5th, 2000 at 2 p.m. Then I'm going to tab, so the Y lines up with my first letter, and I'm going to give the style of the case. ABC Corporation versus DEF Limited. And I might include a style information or something like that. I might give my client identifier. So I'm going to say our client identifier is ABC dash 210. I'm going to italicize the style just because it's kind of what people do. You don't have to. Since it seems like he's my client, I'm going to go ahead and say attorney client communication. If I could type, that would be lovely. Privileged and confidential. You can see how I'm capitalizing all major words. I don't capitalize at. If you wanted to capitalize the P in the end, that would be fine. All the words here are capitalized except for the word and. I don't have any terminal punctuation except where a period goes because of an abbreviation. So I'm good to go there. All of my letters line up nicely. The Y, the A, the open parentheses, and the A are just what I want them to be. Let me save and go to my next requirement. Now I'm going to go to the salutation. Again, we need to skip at least one line. A second line would be okay. I'm going to skip 2 here. So I'm going to go down here. Again, I might readjust this. And I don't know Robert very well, so I'm going to go with Dear Mr. Davis. Again, it's a professional letter. So I have that. Now I'm going to skip the body. I'm just going to put body here. Let's see. I would say paragraph 1 needs 2 sentences. And then I'm going to say body paragraph 2 needs 1 sentence. Then I'm going to tab these over because we know that we need a space between the first paragraph and the salutation. Then we need a space between paragraphs. And the first line of all paragraphs are going to be indented. Then I need 1 blank line here. Let me just refresh on this to make sure I'm doing it right. Okay, so now we have the second line, so just 1 blank space. And now we're going to line up. We're going to use very truly yours here. And I'm going to, let me shrink this a little bit. I'm going to line up my V in very truly yours so it lines up with my O. So tab, 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 tab. And that looks like it will. Very truly yours. Just capitalize the V and then the comma. Let's see here. We can see my O. The outside edge of my O is lined up with the 3. Let me go for very. Actually, it won't let me. I might have to. I guess I would need to. So I would need to add another page to make that work. I'm not gonna be that stressful because I think you can see that it would line up. Okay, so I need at least 3 blank lines. So this would be the first line I could type my name on or whomever I'm preparing it for. So I need 3 pilcrows, the backwards P right here. So I'm actually going to be signing this letter. So Cynthia Ferris Groover, no comma, go to the next line. And my title is lead paralegal. There we go. So I'm going to save. And now I'm going to go and look at the next thing we need to do. I'm not going to include the name or address of the law firm. I'm not going to include typist initials because I prepared this for myself. Copy notation. Yes, I do want to include this. I'm going to give a copy to the attorney in charge, and I'm also going to give a copy to one of Mr. Davis's colleagues. So I'm going to do CC, lowercase, space. Now you can see Word is going to fight me here, so I'm going to have to go back and change it. But now I'm okay. Actually, I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to do a tab. And so I'm going to send it to Mr. Peter Monroe, and then I'm going to send it to Miss Catherine White. You can see how my M here lines up with the M here. And now I'm going to go, so those are my CCs. I'm going to go and see what the next component is going to be. My next component is going to be enclosures. And let's say I'm giving him, I don't know, a map of how to find my office. So it's just one enclosure, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to tab map of office location. And so I have completed all of the components in my letter. I'm not going to add a page number and I'm not going to add a footer. So I'm good to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and write my paragraphs. And so basically the only thing I'm doing here is telling Mr. Davis about his deposition. I might start by introducing myself if I haven't dealt very much with Mr. Davis. That's a good way to start. I am Cynthia Ferris Groover, the paralegal who works with Catherine White, the attorney who is representing your employer, ABC Corporation, in its lawsuit against DEF Limited. In this letter, I am providing you with some information about, let's not make it your deposition. Let's say it's maybe your meeting, okay, about an upcoming meeting with Miss White. Okay, so I have 2 sentences in this paragraph. Here's my first sentence, and here's the second sentence. Okay, And you can see I only indent the first line. Now what I really want him to know is this date. If I bury it in the paragraph, is he going to see it? So I'm going to lead. I'm going to have a whole paragraph just about this, and I'm going to make it my first sentence. I might say, as you know, you have an appointment with Miss White on, and I'm going to check to see the day of the week that this is. November 5 at 2 p.m. Because I forgot the comma up here, didn't I? Okay. I'm going to assume that this is a Tuesday date. Obviously, you'd want to check. Giving the actual day of the week can help the person remember it. And I'm just going to put this in bold. Actually, I'm going to wait till we type some more. In our offices at 4500 North Bay Street, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I'm going to highlight that, and I probably wouldn't, maybe I might highlight in our offices too. Then we look forward to seeing you at that time. If you have, this is kind of my final paragraph. I only need 2 paragraphs. I'm having a third, but I'm going to close on if you have any questions or your availability changes, please contact me. My direct line is 214 432 6789. And now we have, and we're going to save it. So we have a pretty good letter, but before we're done, we're going to check it to make sure it's doing all the things that we want. So we're going to do the review, and I'm going to go through and check. We can see that I don't have any passive voice sentences. You'd ideally like a grade of 9 or lower, so this is good. I have on average 13 words per sentence. That's great. Let's just check our sentences. The way to check a sentence to see how long it is you can highlight it and get a word count. We can see this one has 27 words. That's longer than I want to have my sentences be. So I'm going to say, as you know, she is the attorney who is representing your client. I don't want to say that phrase twice. So now we can count the words and just see if we're good. So count, only 12, good. Count, 20, perfect. Count, 17, great. Count. This is 25. I mean, it's a little bit long, but each word is going to be counting each one of these as its own word. So I think that's fine. I forgot a period here, didn't I? Okay. And this is 9, perfect. We actually have 2 sentences here. You could combine these into one sentence. This is 12, and this is good. 6. Okay, so we're going to do spelling and grammar. We're going to have it check the whole thing. It did not find any errors, but if it did, it would let me know about them, and I would have the opportunity to fix it. So this is a nice letter. I'm going to look at it with all of the pilcrows and and tabs on it to make sure I'm happy with it. I'm going to shrink the letter to view as one page. Oh, look here, our letter's too long. We've gone on to the next page, so we're going to address that. So let's go back here and figure out how we're going to clean it up. Okay, so I'm going to remove this extra space. So we need just a couple more spaces here to make this work. I'm going to stick this sentence at the end of our paragraph. Add that space back, and now we just need one more. I am going to remove this space. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to put this up here, and I forgot to bold this, didn't I? So let me bold it. Again, you're going to go through each one of the steps. I'm just going to call this our file number. Don't want that in italics though. Okay. And so we have everything on the one page. It looks pretty nice. I'm going to obviously proof it, then I'm going to make the all the signs go away and see. It's pretty balanced. It's a little bit lower on the page than I ideally would like, so I might choose to maybe get rid of this, at least some of this on this line, and then put this up here. But it works. I might get rid of this too if I decide I'm in a crunch, but I think that it is an attractive letter, and so I think it's probably ready to go. Again, you're going to proofread it one more time before you decide to submit it. Now, one thing sometimes students ask me about the examples is they say, well, this is a Florida law firm, but we're in Texas. Why would we be using that? Some law firms are in multiple states, and in those cases, sometimes they use the letterhead of their major office, and because that's where the business primarily is. Sometimes they'll just list all their locations. Don't worry about that. If you want to change this, if you feel like it should be changed, just send me a note and we can talk through why maybe it ought to stay what it is. A best practice is just not to play with the letterhead at all. You can obviously, if in the real world, obviously you would talk to your manager and say, well, why are we using the Florida letterhead since we're in Texas? And that might prompt somebody to order some letterhead from a Texas stationer to make sure it's all good. But anyway, this is a very nice letter. And so I think we're done. I hope that this information has been helpful. If you continue to have questions about formatting, please feel free to email me or stop by my office hours. I hope you have a great day. Take care.